This is Wealth Builders, presented by StatonWalsh, a show designed to pull back the curtain of the financial industry and bring true transparency to the forefront of conversation. On the show, we cover topics like financial education, current events, and interview business leaders and industry experts with the ultimate goal of helping listeners discover their own path to financial independence.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wealth Builders. I am Devin Walsh. I am joined today by my business partner, Ryan Staton, and a great friend of mine, Greg Derwart. Greg and I met through my fiance, Marissa, a few years back, and just created a awesome relationship. He's more than just a friend. He's a great mentor of mine. He is an operations genius, in my opinion, and recently just wrote an awesome book, The New You, Goal Mapping and Pivoting in a Changing the World. And Greg, when I told you, when I got this off Amazon, I picked it up and couldn't put it down. Read it all in a few hours, and it was fantastic. So congrats on all the success with the new book. So welcome to the show today. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thanks, Deb and Ryan. Great to see you guys, and looking forward to the conversation.
Great.
So I'm gonna kick it off. We asked you a couple of questions. Yeah, first I want to kind of just preface this episode. Goals, objectives, in our practice, things we talk about consistently with clients, obviously through the scope of the financial planning lens. But today, I think what we're going to focus on, and what your book really focuses on, is from a general point of view, applying goal mapping to many different aspects of your life. Whether you own a business, whether you're building a financial plan, whether you just wake up one day and you say, I just want to really get my life on a different path or get it back on track or whatever that may be. And I know you're going to share some great insights for us with that today. But before we get there, I always like to lead off, since we're going to be talking a lot about your professional bio. One of my favorite questions to ask guests on the show is, tell us something interesting about yourself that wouldn't show up in a professional bio.
Oh, great question. Well, I think the best way to answer that is, I'm sitting here in my church, and I'm here because when we're done our conversation, I'm going to go into rehearsal for our praise team, and I play bass for our contemporary worship team.
All right, bass guy.
Bass guy.
Yeah, so I've been playing guitar since I was a kid, and always enjoyed that. I was in garage bands in high school. And playing for 13-year-old birthday parties and stuff like that, and hadn't touched it for years. And probably around 7 or 8 years ago, our church was really growing its contemporary worship, and started playing guitar again with them. And then a few years ago, I switched to bass just because I thought it'd be fun, and I'm having a blast with it.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. It's funny. We're on a little guitar kick here. Our most recent interview we did too. Guitar was the answer there as well. So we're on this little musician kick right now, Ryan.
Cool. We'll have to get the band together.
Exactly.
We're gonna have to find some other people. We're gonna have to find a drummer and a singer now. We'll be set.
There you go.
So, tell us a little bit. Thank you, obviously, for sharing that. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Devin mentioned you spent a lot of years working in operations, and talk a little bit about your professional experience and how that's kind of led to you, or how that led up to you ultimately writing your book.
Sure. Yeah. So my background, generally looking back the past 20 plus years, is centered around administration and operations. I've had HR departments report to me, finance departments, IT, fleet services, facilities management, all those back office facilities and operational functions that are core to a smooth operating office. So I've always thrived on and needed to be organized and focused and strategic in nature. I'm a sucker for a strategic plan. I want to know the big picture, So I think that's the main background thread of my experience. The other thing I'll mention is that going back to, just out of college, I've started creating my own personal goals. And I was blessed with the opportunity to work with some great mentors and coworkers early in my professional career that gave me some structure around goal planning, and teed me up to looking at Stephen Covey and Napoleon Hill and a lot of these greats in terms of creating a focus around a burning desire in your life. And I've basically just tweaked and nurtured that process for myself personally over the years. And then at some point, as I grew in management responsibilities, I took that goal planning structure and applied it to my teams, because I wanted to make sure that the team was on the same page from a strategic standpoint, and it also helped me hold them accountable and have transparency in supporting them and holding them accountable.
That's great. So when I've read the book, I've went through the goal mapping process, and I've kind of applied it to our practice. And it's when Ryan talks about goals and objectives, it's the key to success in everything, whether it's an individual, whether it's a business. So is this really for everybody, whether it's you're a business owner or an individual? How is it applied to not only as the business owners out there who might find this extremely effective, but also the individuals who might just be an employee of a company and kind of doing this for their own personal lives?
Sure. Great question, Dad. So I would say that the only way this process wouldn't apply to someone is if it's someone that has no desire to improve themselves. You need to have, first and foremost, that innate desire to take things to another level, to improve your situation, to improve your life. And if you come with that expectation, then yes, it can be relevant and helpful and life-changing for whatever industry you're in, whatever stage of life you're in. I'm 50 years old and I'm still adding new goals to my list every year as well. So, but it's also great for college graduates and people just starting their career who are still trying to figure out, what they want to do with their lives and what their purpose is in life. So it can apply in those situations, as well as a 40, 50, 60-year-old you're onboarding a new client and you're asking them those financial goals and retirement plans. That all encompasses that as well.
No, and I think it's so important to write down your vision, your objectives, putting it out there rather than just so many times we have these ideas and we don't write them down. Actually writing it down and having the vision, what's your mission statement? It's so important to see that as a physical thing. And I know one of the things that Ryan does that I've started doing every single year, he writes down I don't want to steal his thunder, but he writes down his goals and his everything he wants to accomplish every year on a note card and puts it in his wallet.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
If you don't write them down, you're not taking it seriously, because not only do you write it down, but Ryan, if it's in your wallet, that means you're referring to it. Doug, in the book, you'll remember that I drill it down to a weekly and daily process of checking those short-term goals and figuring out what you're going to do to have stepping stone tasks this week to get one step closer to accomplishing those short-term goals.
Absolutely. No, yeah, that's an exercise I picked up from a friend of mine that did it, and he just kind of said, this is it's a subconscious thing. It's like you write them down and you also carry them with you. I mean, obviously most of us carry wallets with us everywhere, so they're always with you. And one of the philosophy behind that is the subconscious mind always knows, those things are buried in the back of your mind. And one of the biggest parts of that exercise is actually those are considered, long-term for a year, 12-month goals, but you don't pull it out maybe a couple times a year, but you just look at it, and you would be surprised when just by going through that exercise and kind of planting that seed in your head that I don't think I've ever had a year where I've gotten through the entire list, but I periodically will check it and I'm like, oh, I actually, I did that. And I wasn't thinking about the list while I was doing it. It was just the initial exercise of saying, I want to do these things, and kind of letting your brain and your body take over. It's just one of those things that can happen. But, when I was reading through your process, it definitely, the way that it breaks everything out, that short term, midterm, long term, it does a really good job, I think, of helping us, because we're all human beings. We have busy lives. If we put a list, I'm guilty of it too. I'll put a list of 10 things I want to accomplish on the fridge, and I rarely ever get to those. It's kind of like I got to chip away at them. But I really like your process of breaking it down in those segments of time, because it gives you, it's kind of like almost like we talk about snowball effect when you're paying off debt. It's like pay off something small, and that starts the momentum of getting to those bigger ticket items, getting those out of the way. So I think that this really, and it looks like there's some things that you do to prioritize. And so I guess drill down a little bit more on the process and how you envision it for an average everyday person using it, how they could apply it to, everyday life.
Sure. Well, even before we talk about goal planning, the first couple steps of the process deal with just stepping back and being reflective about your values and the priorities of your life. What are your passions? What are the different roles that are important to you? Are you a father, a mother, a business professional, a volunteer? And just writing down and clarifying and affirming in your mind what the values and roles and passions and your unique abilities. There's an assessment called the Unique Abilities Assessment, through Strategic Coach, where it walks you through the process of identifying what your unique abilities are, the things that you're great at and you love to do. If you incorporate those skills into your projects and your goals, then you're more likely to accomplish them. Zig Ziglar talked about how he hates it when these consultants talk about how you can do anything you want. That's not true. Wilt Chamberlain would not have been a great jockey. He could have said he might be a great jockey. I'm going to be a good jockey. It just wouldn't have happened. So identifying those unique abilities, maybe I should be a basketball player, and just be mindful of that. So going through that process then gives you the opportunity to come up with an overarching purpose or mission statement. Companies do the same thing and have a corporate mission statement. And that's basically, your purpose, the reason for existing. And this is something that won't change from year to year. And then the next thing that we do in the process is to look at vision statements. And a lot of people mix up the difference between mission and vision statements. A mission statement is your purpose. A vision is that aspirational look at what things will look like in the future, best case scenario, once you've accomplished all your goals. So, and then what I do is I recommend to folks that you break your goals and your visions down into categories. So we've talked about financial goals, right? I break my categories into faith, family, career, wealth, knowledge, community, and was that the other one? Help me. What's the seventh one? Look it up in the book. Faith, family, career, wealth, health,
Devin, you wrote the book.
Knowledge, and community. So I think I forgot health. Okay. You guys can edit that
out. So you created this, like we said, this awesome process, and now it's in book form. Writing a book is intimidating. I think about writing a book, and I read this, I'm like, how the heck did you do this? This is fantastic. So first of all, why did you do it? How was that process?
Yeah.
And how did this, this vision you had, like that vision statement you had when you created this process? Obviously, one of the visions you had was to write a book and spread it out to the masses. So what was that journey like? When did it come about? Was it 20 years ago you thought about? Was it something during
this is
quarantine? It's like, let's do this thing.
Yeah, this is literally something that I've just started thinking about over the past couple years. And it's mainly because people have suggested that because over the years I mentioned how, friends and family know that I'm doing this, and they've asked for help. So I've walked a lot of folks through this process just as, to help friends and folks, in my circle. And they said, you should write a book about this. People would love this. And I was like, I never really took that seriously. And then the pandemic happened and the world shut down. And I noticed so many people struggling through this. I get it, but I saw a lot of people just searching for meaning in their lives, wanting to reset, refocus what they do with their career. Maybe they were laid off. And I realized, I lost my job last year too, but the difference between someone who's gone through this process as opposed to someone who hasn't gone through this process, we're all going to hit adversity multiple times throughout our lives. It's inevitable. But if you've already developed complete peace and clarity about your purpose, your goals, and the reason why you exist, when you hit those stumbling blocks, it's so much easier to push through them and continue leaning forward towards those long-term goals, because you realize this is just a stumbling block, as opposed to someone who's never gone through this process and they freak out. They're lost. So I was like, it's time for me to try to share the story with some folks, because I saw too many people struggling when I didn't think they needed to. No. So, and the other thing I'll tell you is that I'm blessed with many people in my my business circle, and one of them happens to be an author. She's published several books herself, and she offered to guide me through the process, and showed me how to go through the steps of self-publishing on Amazon. So that was the final straw. She said, let's do it. And I was like, okay. So we knocked it out literally in a course of like 3 months.
Really? That's awesome.
It's impressive.
Because I knew the story, I've been doing it for 20 years, and she helped me tap, if you've read the book, you know that I use a lot of personal stories, and not just my own, but from my father and several mentors that have been, close to me over the decades. So she interviewed them and helped pull some great stories out of them that I wouldn't have thought to ask. And we really tied it together into a nice story.
Yeah, it's great. You read this book and you look at the foreword and some of the people that spoke about this book. There's some serious people, like business leaders in this community, that have talked about your success in operations and everything. So who influenced, like, you've had all these, like you talk about your business network, Greg, you have a fantastic network, and you just have to were those the people kind of influenced you? Where'd your influences come from to kind of do all this?
Sure. So it's a mix of personal and professional. I learned early on that, number one, the best way to improve yourself is to surround yourself with people better than you. So, when I over the years, when I see a successful person, I want to tap their genius and pick their brain and learn how do you do it? What makes you tick? Why are you doing it this way as opposed to that way? So just being a sponge and just, try to attract myself to successful people as much as possible. And then the other thing is, I've been blessed to be helped by so many people. Now I'm at the stage in my career where I want to give back and be that resource to other people. So, so I always will accept an invitation to help someone. So, and that's the concept of servant leadership. When I offer myself up in service to others, I get more out of it than they do, because they're bringing perspectives that I don't have. So it's become a real core tenet of just the way I live my life. The more people I serve, the more I get out of life.
No, I love that. And so you mentioned a couple people that have influenced you, and I heard you earlier mention some other prominent authors and some great books. I heard you mention like Napoleon Hill, Think Rich, Grow Rich, and
Yeah.
I see that mentioned in some of the worksheets and other resources that you provide. So, was this book kind of a combination of some of the things that information and things that you've gathered from some of those books over the years and kind of meshed it all into one, or are those
Yeah.
influences or to be from another point of view, is this just a more concise version of those, getting straight to the point and helping, normal people who maybe don't want to sit around and read a 350 page book, get right to the point and say, let's take all of those concepts, boil them down and deliver them to you in about 100 pages and be done.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah. So I think the answer is yes to all those questions.
okay?
So yes, I've pulled from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, from a strategic, big picture standpoint. I've pulled from Stephen Covey, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, from a tactical, strategic standpoint. Even more recently, things like Brendan Bouchard with High Performance Habits, and Hal Elrod, his Miracle Morning process. So I give full credit, to all of those resources that I've tapped over the years. But at the same time, I'm not regurgitating all of those things. I'm sharing pieces of it that I use, and I tweak it and have created it as my own process in a way. I'm not a rocket scientist. If it's too complicated, I'm not going to do it. And most folks won't do it. So I think that the key to success for my process is to keep it simple and to keep it digestible and to break it down into small, simple, step-by-step processes that don't feel overwhelming on a daily and weekly basis. Because I talk, for some people, if I ask them to create a mission statement for their life, that can be pretty intimidating for people. You want me to boil my whole life down into a mission statement? Give me a break. But I talk through that process so that it feels realistic and it is it's doable. But then once you do that, you don't just sit that on the shelf like a dusty corporate strategic plan. You got to do something with it, and that's where the long-term goals, the mid-range, and the short-term, going from 6+ years to 3 to 5 years. I call short-term goals my 12-month, 1-year goals. But then even from there, being able to take it down into quarterly, semi-annual, monthly, weekly, and daily steps, so that you're, just, taking 1 or 2 steps a day. And, Ryan, you talk about how you'll look at that list in your wallet, after a few months, and you're like, wow, I actually accomplished all of these things. I didn't hit all of them, and that's okay. If you don't hit all those goals, that's fine. The fact that you got half of them done, maybe you wouldn't have gotten any of them done if you hadn't started the list in the first place.
Sure. That's a good point.
So kudos to you for getting those 3 things done. The other 9 that are still on the list, at the end of the year, what I would suggest people do is go back to your mid-range and long-term goals and see if those short-term goals that you didn't accomplish, are they still relevant and could they still be helpful? Then put them on the top of the list for next year, and then figure out a better way to get them done.
That's great. And like I say, you've done such a great job taking this daunting task. When you think about planning and putting like business plans together or your personal life plans, you've taken this daunting task and literally simplified it to a day-to-day thing. I think it's so helpful for people to get started. And rather than saying, hey, we ask people, like, what do you want, 30-year-old, when do you want to retire? What's 35 years away, So let's talk about what we want to accomplish this week. I think it's so important to kind of break it down the way you have.
Yep.
So kind of finishing up, what are some other things about the book you want people to know, or about this process, or what do you want people to know?
Well, I think the bottom line for me is that, we talk, you talk about how I've been blessed with a lot of, business executives in the community that have supported me and championed this effort. But I think the bottom line is that this is something that can be useful for anybody, not just a corporate CEO. I mentioned, young people starting out in their career. It's for anyone that is just looking to improve their situation. As long as you have that general attitude, desire to improve your situation in life, then that you've already taken the first step, and then the next step after that would be to figure out, a structure to move forward. And that's what the book tries to do.
That's great. So last question, Greg. You're in your first day of retirement. If you decide to retire, you're on a beach, you're playing your guitar, sun's coming down. You look back on your career and your life. Do you like that? Do you guys like the way I pictured that?
I'm picturing, I'm seeing
picture
he's playing the guitar on
playing
the beach.
Guitar. What song, Greg? What song are you
at
playing? By the
sunset.
way? We got
The Power of Love by Huey Lewis.
There we go.
Okay.
You have Power of Love playing. You have people around you watching. You might be a rock star by then. But you look back on your legacy. When you look back on your career and your life, what's the legacy you want to leave? You look back. What are some of the accomplishments when you look back? Say, I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. That's easy because my personal mission statement is to be a successful servant. So if I look back at my life, whether that's tonight or in 50 years, I will have been successful if I served people and helped them grow.
No, I love it. So one last time, Greg. So where can people go find this awesome book?
The book is available on Amazon, and I'd be happy to share the link with you.
Awesome. Well, we'll do that, Greg. Well, we can't thank you enough. We know how busy you are, and we're just so appreciative of you to be on here today with us. We know we are using your process. It's fantastic. We recommend anybody go out, buy the book. It's worth a read. It's fantastic. And just congrats, Greg, on all the success and everything you've done in your career. You've made such a bright light on my life, and I know a lot of many others. So just thank you for all that you do. And thanks everybody for listening this week. Make sure you subscribe to us on all major podcasts and watch us on YouTube, and have a great week.
Awesome. Thanks.